Tell me when you're ready. Awesome. Right, so we don't have our minutes right now. There, as Town Clerk Weber just told me, there has been a.
No, that was town board. You have a police committee.
Okay, great. Okay, these minutes.
Yeah, those minutes are there.
Okay, well, then I'd love to have a motion to approve the October 26th meeting minutes. Someone's open to
I'll
that.
move them. Do we have quorum to be able to do such a thing?
I don't know.
Well,
if you
let's see here. If you want to substitute it for the village.
I can substitute for the village if I,
Why don't you?
but I wasn't here, so I don't.
So
So you keep it on this. That's okay.
saying, so the actions that this board takes are not binding actions, and therefore I think it's more of a indication of the support of the people that are sitting on it. So I'm okay for you guys to do that. I'm simply testing that.
Oh, you don't know Tom. That's great. That's great.
It's been to one of our meetings overnight. Yes, we probably ran into each other last time. So it's moved.
Okay, thank you so much. Well, then, in that case, we would like to vote on approving the minutes. Anybody else want to give a second?
Actually,
Should we wait and just till the next meeting? Sounds great.
Okay. I will table them until next.
Ah, but we didn't do our pledge first.
Yes, I was gonna
I'm
say.
sorry, America. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. It's great. So we have these dates here for the 2023 meetings. February 22nd being the first of the 6. Are there any questions about the dates or considerations we should take into account before we move to set them? Okay, and I'm looking for a motion to set the dates for the 2023 meetings, please.
I'll second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstaining? Okay, so that those pass. Thank you very much, and they're set. Why don't we jump into old business, which would include the discussion we had about the flock camera system. And I think that's all we had there was the flock for old business. Are there any other issues about flock that we want to discuss now?
Well, since I wasn't at the town meeting, I'm assuming, well, I am aware that the town board said we don't want it, so I'm just,
They didn't move to take a vote on it.
okay. And the reason was that there were enough people opposed. Did any people come out in favor of it? All participants said, we don't think this is a good idea.
I think people could see the merits and understood, but had questions about needing it instead of working with the company, even though it's starting a new relationship with a company, when we had a relationship with the company that does the car cameras, and asking sort of, why would we start a new relationship with a new company? Also, the main concerns were around the storage of the data and the privileges around what happens with the data. Those were the key issues that came up. But if this is, I think this is an important conversation for the town and the villages to continue to have. I know that the county took a survey before installing its cameras, the city did a whole survey. I could bring back to the board if there were, things that, the chief or the police committee wanted to continue to discuss on this, having more surveillance, and then also what the data guidelines would be. New York State doesn't have the same kind of law that there's in other states around the data that's gathered from the readers, the license plate readers. I assume that has to do maybe with Homeland Security concerns in downstate, but so if we had something like that in place, I think the board would have been a lot more comfortable. There didn't seem to be a recourse. And we felt like we were the last line of defense, so to speak, on that front in terms of privacy. I think that was the concern. So I hope that's helpful information. William's not here to share, but if there are additional questions, I can take them back up.
Well, as a village of Manlius trustee, I'm very much for it, and I'm disappointed that the town decided to take it. I think it's based on the presentation, based on the company's track record, based on the county, based on the city. You know, adopting it, I think it's a shame that our area is not going to be able to be helpful in bringing criminals to justice. If, you know, we had the system, I just wanted stated that I'm for it, and I'm reasonably sure that my colleagues on Manlius.
Well, I did want to ask if you had a chance to discuss it at any of the board meetings or in any of your sessions at the village level.
We have not, for one reason or another. I think once my opportunity was in November, but once the town said we're opposed to this, I think in my head, I thought, well, this is a done issue because the town oversees the town police department. So that's that. I will absolutely bring it up in January.
The idea that we were asking about your opinions about the flock camera, no doubt. But the larger issue is also how do we come together to decide how we're going to understand what our policies are around data collection. The kind that we're responsible for. There are things, of course, that are regulated in other places, but in that's the question I would ask of the village. If we want to have a conversation and do something as a police committee to work on this issue, that would be my ask.
The Village of Fayetteville voted on it twice.
Yes.
And I agree with some of the concerns of the data storage, I think is the big.
Yeah.
But I would guess I would look at your town council and the police council for the police chief and see if we can come up with some agreement that Flock or the company, you know, that does this could come up and alleviate the concerns of the town board's concerns of legitimate. I don't disagree, but I think the safety aspect outweighs some of those concerns. And I'm pretty sure Manola voted in favor of it too.
Mhm.
So,
The,
because you guys asked us to, we originally did it just very informally.
Yeah.
Everybody okay when the police chief asked, and then the police committee asked us to do a formal vote. We did it, it was unanimous both times. So I think this is a tool that we should absolutely be looking at it, and hopefully there's a way that we can. Maybe there's a way we can store it on our own that we know it's, you know what I mean, that there's gotta be some way to do this, that we can benefit from both the technology and what we're already using, just in it's stored differently. So
I understand that the actual camera may not, and the grant may not be available also at some point. So I think I understand that's an opportunity cost, so that there could be a concern around that. And for the efforts made to, secure this in the first place, I know that it must seem, it can be frustrating, but that's why I think we need to have a process for some of these larger issues where we haven't had the discussions before as a community. We need to make sure we're doing it actively so that we can be prepared.
Yeah.
I think the CRC also, and recommendations from the CRC, what they're, based on what the needs are after understanding, recommendations that come from there too can be helpful in guiding us. But the way that it happened too is that we knew there was something at the county level that came through, and the chief shared that it's a great opportunity, we should seize it, but without that underlying, again, conversation about what we do. I don't think people knew that we've been having the license plate readers on the cars for 10 years. That's what we learned in the process, is that people didn't even know what data we were already collecting. So that was important.
we've had no issues to my knowledge on the data that's being collected. and it's the same technology,
Yeah,
so.
it's more understanding.
Our frustration was more of just if 3 villages said yes, and then the town board said no. I mean, just like if you guys had said, oh, yeah, and then we said no. It's not it's a frustration that we just want to get through the process and take care of the concerns, because everybody's concerns should be addressed.
Yeah.
Thank you.
It was already something that was, it didn't happen in an order that was as useful for the conversation. To have something that were in a position to have to consider after it had already been done and dusted in some ways. So that is a process that I hope we can improve on. I will talk to Bobby just to get the feedback from, I'll follow up after this conversation. Okay, that was the old business. Next is new business. Is there anything new for the table? Okay. Chief Kroll.
Just a few things. I don't have too much. First is, Fablehead's tree lighting is in ceremony, and Manlius had their festival of lights, or whatever it is you called it. Parade of lights. Parade of lights, thank you. Sounds good. All of which went off without a hitch. So that is always good to see the villages do things like that and get support from the police. I attended, in my position on state chiefs, I attended our board of governors meeting last week, I think it was. And we didn't have a lot to discuss, but one of the things that came up was again, the marijuana issue with the new cannabis laws. And I guess a lot of areas throughout the state have been seeing illegal sales at some of these smoke shops throughout the state. And majority of which do not have licenses to sell cannabis. I haven't seen any problems with the one we have in Fayetteville, the one we have in Manila, but we are keeping an eye on it. Another issue with that is if the word gets out that some of these places are selling illegal cannabis, they're also being targeted for robberies, which is not good. I certainly want to see that in our area. So our people are keeping a real close eye on that. But so far, so good. No issues. Had a really good meeting with the town manager and our automobile insurance carrier. It was the Heller, Brian Kuhn, and they sent out a couple of people, and they wanted to do a real quick review on our policies and procedures associated with our police accidents. Actually, I spelled out and laid out all of our policies, all of our procedures, all of our training, the way we track our accidents, the way we try to prevent our accidents, everything that we do, our review process, and then our discipline process also associated with motor vehicle accidents. And I was happy to say that they really didn't have any suggestions for change, and basically walked away from the table saying, can we model what you guys are doing? Now, that's not a direct reflection on the number of accidents we've had, and unfortunately, we've had a few, but we're still in pretty good standing. So I just wanted the community to know that we're doing everything we can possibly do as a modern law enforcement agency to try to prevent those. Our officers put a ton of miles in those cars, and it's really a game of statistics, right? I mean, put that many miles on a car, eventually something's going to happen. So that was a really good meeting, and very favorable for the town. Our 4 brand new officers that are in field training are doing really well, better than expected. In fact, one of them is probably going to be released early because he's doing so well. That was the transfer candidate we had. Well, it was sort of a transfer candidate, came from police agency in the state of Maine. So he had to go through the academy per New York State standards, but he's doing a great job, as well as the other 3. And I'm happy to report, and I kind of alluded to it a little bit at our last meeting, is we had 4 openings, and I don't know how I was able to pull this off. I shouldn't say me, it wasn't me, it's the team, but we're able to fill all 4 vacancies. I'm going to start the academy sponsored by the sheriff's office, which starts December 27th. So a lot of new people, a lot of new faces, but I think this is the first time in my 5 or 6 years that we've actually been fully staffed. Yeah, right, exactly. Thank you, Tom, appreciate that. And we hope we're going to continue to provide a great work environment for those new people and build family, and hopefully they'll stay with us. And I think that's about all I have.
That's great news about this, about everything. We'll carry it forward to the town board and let them know. I know you maybe updating folks in the meeting on that. I don't know if you're on the agenda.
At the board meeting?
Yeah.
I could, I don't think I'm on the agenda again, but I mean,
No worries,
I'd be happy to,
no worries.
or you could just,
I would be
Report on my
happy to
behalf.
pass that on. Yeah, I'd be happy to pass that on. That's fantastic. We would love it, if since we have mayor and legislator Olson here, you could switch hats for a moment. Is there anything, in correspondence first before we go to privilege of the floor? There's nothing in correspondence, so we would be grateful to hear any updates, from the county's perspective that you might want to share. I'm sorry to put you on the spot. there.
No, that's fine. I do want to take the privilege of the floor first as the mayor. I was reviewing the story last week on Channel 9 about mutual aid
Yes.
that Jeff Kulikowski was doing.
Yep,
And I reviewed the meeting minutes that Dan provided me, where you guys had reflected support for the mutual aid agreement. But yet I don't see anywhere where that's been voted upon.
Mhm.
Then I did a little more research and found out that every agency in Onondaga County has adopted this city, county, town, and village, except the town of Manlius.
Mhm. do you have some questions about where the board is on that? or-
I'm just wondering why hasn't the town considered, or why hasn't been put on the agenda? Or is there an issue that the police committee should know about because they did support the signing of this, but yet it hasn't been put on the agenda, it hasn't been signed. Liverpool Village just signed theirs at their meeting this week. So I'm just concerned that this hasn't been adopted.
Chief, do you want to share a little bit about your interaction with us? And I can fill in any other details about where the board is now on it.
I'm not quite sure where the board is. I presented the idea months ago. I presented to the police committee. Police committee was, the villages anyways, were all in favor of it. We've had multiple discussions. I'm not sure what the board's position is. I know that Councilor Denton indicated that she thought that General Municipal Law 209 reflected everything that was needed for appropriate mutual aid, but I think she and the board completely missed the boat on the liability aspects of it, as well as some of the other benefits associated with a countywide mutual aid agreement. I know that Tim expressed some concerns, and he thought that the language in 209 indicated that we needed to pass a local law in order to make it happen, but again, Bob Durr, the county attorney, and every other municipal attorney in Onondaga County didn't think that was necessary because of the reference to section 119 of the general municipal law about allowing municipalities to engage in agreements with one another. And that was interpreted as being outside of any form of local law. We do have a local law on mutual aid, but it's just, again, that local law sort of mirrors 209 and the general municipal law. It doesn't account for the really biggest part of this is the liability aspect of it. And my greatest concern, of course, like my concern was right from the beginning is, we're the only municipality in the entire county of Onondaga that's didn't agree to this mutual agreement. I don't know if they're going to be able to give us help when we call for it. And if they do, I hope they do, but if they do, the town board's going to be paying for all liability associated with anything if something bad happens. And the backside of that is, I don't think any other municipality in Onondaga County is going to ask for our help, because they know that without this agreement in place, if our people go into a neighboring jurisdiction and something bad happens, like there's an injury with 209 or some type of injury, like long-term medical injuries or history of liability associated with a bad blast, or even if we get into a car accident outside of jurisdiction and they had requested us because we didn't sign the agreement, that flashed it all back to 209. And if it flashes back to 209, whoever requested the assistance, they're out of luck for liability. So they wouldn't want our people coming to their jurisdiction because if our people get hurt, they're on the hook. Whereas the MOU that I was in favor of, everybody took care of their own people, regardless of who was giving or receiving, which to me made perfect sense. So I'm not sure if there's any more to that you can offer, but that's.
You know what? I'd be really happy to bring it back to the board. I think that, Karma, making the recommendation and going through this process, there was no discussion with the other, no group discussion that we were aware of. We individually spoke to our chiefs, as I understood it, within the towns, but the towns also all have the general municipal law in their code. And we are operating right now in a case where mutual aid is not denied ever because the forces act as a family. We had that general threat last week or the week before where the canine units from the state or the county were a part of as I understand it, were a part of the investigation immediately. I think that the board doesn't understand totally. It sounds like the insurance organization was talking about something that would make some sense. Maybe there's clarity and there's some reason behind it, but the risk assessment to us wasn't clear. The example that you gave was also about if the city was rioting again. And yet I didn't hear about from a CRC perspective or whatever. So I mean, I don't think that the case wasn't really clear to us why everyone was even doing this in the first place. I'll be honest with you. I would be curious to know what the incoming sheriff thinks about it too, and what the county's perspective is on it too. I would, if you could share that. We're happy again, just like with the flock camera, the idea of surveillance, the idea of liability and mutual aid liability changing, open to keeping a discussion open on it. And I don't think it's a closed discussion whether we would not sign on, but as of right now, the board was
So
not clear why we
let
should.
me jump in if you don't mind.
Yeah,
Well, Tim, can I just want, all three villages are willing to go to the next level, which is to make a formal request of this because we're that concerned.
Mhm.
And I just want, again, when you talk about frustrations, just because the town board doesn't understand, or just because there's, that doesn't mean we don't have to get those things addressed and get your questions
doubt.
answered and get,
no doubt.
but to not do anything is putting our residents at jeopardy for something that I feel like we could get your questions answered and get some things moving forward. Because the new sheriff, I think, is on board with this because in the fire department, so this fire department as an example. If we didn't have mutual aid, we'd have to hire tens and tens of people to be able to staff for those big events that happen. We can't do it without our mutual aid system. And in our county, we already have this exact style of mutual aid where when we go to, say, Bridgeport or whatever.
Yeah.
We're carrying the liability as we go there, but we have insurance to help us and to cover us and to identify us. Just kind of like the town has in our fire contract. So I just wish that these answers would get, instead of just being tabled and nothing's happening. Because we, as I was reading through it and I went, oh my Lord, what's going on with that? I can't believe we haven't done that. And then I started digging in, and Tim and I had a couple of brief conversations, but everybody signed it. Everybody, city, county, village, and town, police department signed it except us.
Okay, so. And honestly, they're not what the issues were. I think it's been a while since I've even looked at this. The original issue, the two issues that I recall were mutual aid agreement allowed the chief of police to make decisions as opposed to the town board. And there was some question on the town board side about that.
But I think okay, go ahead.
And we booked in our mutual aid law that authority has been already done. So from that perspective, that issue was not an issue.
Yep.
The bigger issue had been shifting the responsibility or the exposure. Chief, if I got it right. Right now, when our people go to the city of Syracuse, and something happens there to those officers, the city of Syracuse's insurance will pick up the costs associated with those.
Whoever the requester would be.
Yeah, so let's say the requester was the city of Syracuse. The agreement reverses that and says, we will be responsible for our officers who go into another municipality to provide services, if there is a problem. That is not what our code says. I think it's the opposite of that. We, I think, are one of two towns that actually have a local law that shifts the responsibility to the chief of police and follows 209 209M as it relates to insurance. That was the concern. And ultimately, it's really the town board's responsibility to determine whether or not they're willing to accept that policy change and change the local law to shift that responsibility.
But they're also not paying, or they don't have the responsibility now of agencies coming in to our jurisdiction. If I'm reading it, if I'm saying what you're saying is correct, so say DeWitt comes here. Right now, we're on the hook.
Mhm.
But with the signed agreement, we wouldn't be on the hook anymore, DeWitt would be.
Mhm.
So,
Okay, either way.
No,
Well,
no,
Well, I
The
mean,
issue is what's more likely to happen, I guess, in the town board.
Yeah.
Is it more likely that we're going to be sending our officers into other jurisdictions? Or is it more likely that other officers from different jurisdictions are going to be coming here? Are we going to be the requesting entity? Is really I think what the town board is kind of trying to figure out.
Yeah.
And I think that past history would suggest that we are a sender rather than a receiver of services. I don't know if that's true, but I think that is what has been, that, at least that's what the town board thinks.
And also-
That might be what the top board thinks, but that's the reality.
so
and
chief,
again, I
when
think
we,
people are making decisions, then they don't understand what's going on.
if
that's-
there's,
That's not the case.
if the case is all, maybe, I mean, there's certainly understanding about that when it comes to the ambulance service. It's completely different.
And I was here yesterday, we're working on. it.
Yeah,
So,
completely different.
completely different, but.
So, but chief, one of the things that would be useful is if there was any conversation at the county level or within the group decision-making body about this, creating the form. We had asked, is there any movement on the liability piece of this? We would be open to signing that version of it. If it's just an agreement, we're just formalizing mutual aid amongst the county, and it's, it's in our code now, but if you wanted to do something that was updated or refreshed, we didn't get any word back on that. If there was any discussion about the fact that we had a concern about the liability piece.
Again, I brought it up multiple times. I called the town supervisor. like,
No, with the.
3 times, asked him to put it back on the agenda for discussion. It never happened.
No, I'm asking, my question was to you about the authors of the mutual aid agreements.
The authors of the mutual aid agreement,
A standard, the mutual aid agreement that came, the standardized one that came from PERMA to us that we reviewed.
Right.
We said we could sign this, it's the liability piece that we're not comfortable with. Is there any, if there's any way to update that, we would be open to voting on.
Well, if that were the case, you would need to sign it, because if you're not concerned about the liability for the town of Manlius, then you wouldn't sign it. Because it flashes back to 209.
Right,
Right.
209 says,
Oh, yeah.
the local government receiving police aid pursuant to this section shall assume the liability for all damages arising out of any act performed in rendering such aid, and shall reimburse the assisting local government for any monies paid to it for salaries or other expenses incurred by it, including damage to or loss of equipment and supplies. So the way the state law reads today, the receiving municipality has to use its insurance to cover any problems that happen with the sending municipality. This agreement reverses that. We would have to amend our local law to reflect that. If that's we would have to actually supersede state law and amend our code to allow that to happen. I'm not sure where this Bob Durr thing comes in, but Bob Durr and I have discussed this, and I think, first of all, Bob Durr is not a town attorney, he's the county attorney. And I am the town attorney, that is my legal opinion. I think he disagrees with my legal opinion about whether we need to amend our local law to reflect a change in what the state statute says.
Thank you.
I guess I just wanted to make sure that there's a resolution, one, but two, that just like fire and EMS and just like police, all the tools available to our departments during an emergency is available. That I just want to make sure that this doesn't hinder that. And you look at the report on the TV and you look at nothing taking place and then you read the things, what? And no disrespect, we don't always agree with our attorneys, and we don't always have to agree with our attorneys. But
I'm
we have a
telling you what the state law says.
but we have a responsibility.
I'm telling you what the state
Excuse me,
statute says.
we have a responsibility.
Excuse me.
I have a responsibility to provide service to our residents.
And I am the town attorney of the town of Manlius. If the town code says you have to follow state statute, then we follow state statute. If we want to change that, there is a mechanism to do that.
But you just said nothing's been done on it because you forgot about it.
No, that's not true. The mutual aid, that's unfair to say, I think.
You didn't too.
We did not want to sign the agreement as it was presented. We explained our problem was with the liability piece. The rest of the towns went ahead and signed it. I guess they didn't have the same concerns.
Well, it makes sense. It makes sense that we're the only two that have it.
Right.
Is there a way to at least address those?
That's my recollection.
Yeah.
My recollection is there are two
Right.
towns in the county, I think Geddes is one, and where the other ones actually have a local law.
So if you believe still that we are exposed in a way where people will not call us or help us or let us help them because of this, we should have that discussion. As you said, I don't know why, if mutual aid has been in place and has been working up until now, why it would be a difference.
We haven't had a major incident. I'm preparing for a major incident. We're in direct path of Hancock International Airport. Plane goes down in the north end of the town. If we need help, and we would need help. Beyond the county sheriff, beyond the New York State Police. We may not get it.
You doubt that we
Or
would.
If we did get it, the town of Manlius is on the hook for paying, because the example Tim provided is completely accurate. But that's only one side of it. That would be if we went into the city like what happened 2 years ago. Now, the reverse of that, because aid is mutual.
Right.
If a bad thing happened in the town of Manlius, I have the authority to call for help.
Right.
They may not come,
Right.
so
Mutual aid right now in the agreement though does say that it's not for catastrophic situations.
yeah.
It's just general.
emergencies.
It doesn't. Okay, I don't know how it would be, how it's qualified. You can explain to me.
It's in the event of an emergency or a large scale incident where we need and request mutual aid. Which would be reserved, it doesn't include day-to-day operations. It would be kind of like the fire department, it would be a major incident where you need a lot of bodies, a lot of resources.
So if I could just jump in, I'm the only one to get a chance to get in there. Your request is very simple. Hey, we have something in our local law, can you guys adjust the MOU that everybody else has signed and have one for us, so we don't have to change the law? Likely, unlikely, they're gonna be up for that. So then that goes to, okay, the villages are on board and in favor of this, we want this. I think desperately or badly, I think is appropriate. Then a local law has to be adjusted, has to be changed.
Would have to be, yeah.
To allow the board, because right now it would be unlawful to sign a memo of mutual aid agreement that is in opposition of your code.
What did Geddes do?
Don't know.
So we should double check and see if Geddes signed.
I just want to make sure he has the resources he needs, if God forbid something happens.
Of course.
And I know you,
Obviously-
oh, yeah, exactly, but right now, we haven't done anything, so we're in limbo. Not that we haven't done anything, but it hasn't been,
And we
we
have,
haven't done it, we've looked at it, but we haven't finished anything.
Chief, today, this is what you're setting up. Chief, today, if you called and asked for support from the towns and the rest of the county for a large scale incident, if a plane did crash here, would you get support from folks?
Yeah, but Manlius would pay for everything.
Or the federal government would also come in
When you
as a
say
plane
pay for,
attack.
you mean pay for,
Liability.
yeah,
It's liability.
which is what the state statute says it should be.
Right, as 209 says liability, actions, motor vehicle, any vehicle, equipment that's damaged, all that.
Yeah,
Counts on the.
but you don't doubt what you're saying, that you don't doubt that people would come to us.
I hope not.
Okay.
But again, you gotta go, it's mutual, right? Two-way street. Now you look at the other end and say, would the town of Geddes or Camillus or any other agency out of their county, would they call us? Knowing that we didn't sign the agreement and knowing that if they do request us, they're on the hook.
Could I suggest that we actually tell them we're interested, there's an option here. We either change our law or we say, we request and we send a memo of a memorandum of understanding or whatever it is to the other municipalities and to this county and to this, to the sheriff's office and to the state, the city, saying we're still supportive of mutual aid. We have a different, we are differently liable. I mean, that is an option. Or just we're reminding you, ours is the
That's
same.
what I wanted. What you just described is what I wanted, MOU.
That's what you were saying
It's
before.
basically General Municipal Law 209 on steroids, because it includes things like opt-out agreements. It includes things like specific areas of liability outside of General Municipal Law 209. That's what the MOU is for. Because 119 of General Municipal also says that municipalities can engage in agreements with one another. This is that agreement, memorandum of understanding. And it's 209 on steroids. So that nobody had to worry about it. Everybody took care of their own people.
We haven't had a, somebody from our own insurance, with PERMA, but we haven't had anybody from our insurance advisors comment on it.
Well, when I
So
had that meeting with Howard Fryer and Kuhn, I brought it up to them. and
What did
said,
they say?
Why wouldn't the town have to do this? I said, you're gonna have to ask the board that question. And I didn't meet with the people that have their liability insurance covered, but they would probably have a greater say in it. Which is not Howard Fryer and Kuhn, but it's, our liability insurance is under a different organization, so.
listen, so maybe, may I suggest for next steps that, you believe that this is an outstanding issue and the mayor and our village, representative want to continue to hear on this, hear us do something on this again, continue to work on this. I think we need to to build up and have in print the recommendations from the risk assess, from our folks who measure our risk and give us their opinion. And basically have some justification behind why we would change our law now, other than other folks didn't have it articulated broadly, and now it is. It is a different kind of liability. I do think that that's the issue. I don't think that the mutual aid piece is an issue, because we obviously care about providing that. That's what I would recommend bringing to the board and taking the steps, taking steps forward to address this. I don't think we're completely opposed to support to signing it. Of course, we don't want to be the outliers. It's very strange and difficult,
Yeah.
but we're just articulating where we are with it.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem.
So not summarize that perfectly.
Okay, Chief, any other thoughts about that?
No.
Okay. All right, well, that was, are there any other items that we should discuss? Allison's like, I don't think we should.
No specific issues from the village, the Manlius or things.
Thank you for your help and support for our creative lives.
My pleasure.
Yeah,
Thank you.
thank you very much. All right, well, on that note, our next meeting will be scheduled for February 22nd. Our times again are in the coming year, 5 p.m. here at Town Hall. We are broadcasting, and so people can participate to listen in virtually. And if anyone ever needed to participate, we could just contact us and we could do that in a hybrid fashion. You're always welcome, Mayor and
Yeah.
legislator. You're always
I
welcome.
will do this virtually then.
Okay, great.
I can't stop looking at myself.
I know it's difficult.
It's very like,
The owls.
we're doing one, but we're doing a TV on the wall, so I'm hoping it's not this like.
You get a real understanding
Well,
of
you're
the
like,
faces you made.
You're
Yeah.
like,
Yeah, I'm gonna have fun watching this one again, I'm sure. Thank you all very much, and I wish you all a good holiday. Thanks.
Let's get close.
Oh, we have to do an official motion to close. Thanks, Tom.
Okay.
Any second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we're closed.